Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is the next video. We're going to be dealing with pre-algebra goal 3, which has to do with ratios, proportions, and percents. We've spent the last two videos getting to understand the basics of ratios, learning a little bit about proportions, and we really in the last video got into some bare bones understanding of percents. The trick though to keep in mind is that all of these things are basically interchangeable when you start dealing with them in the real world. And because of that, you eventually want to get used to understanding how to convert thing A to thing B. And that's what we want to be focusing on for this video. These are all the topics that are going to be covered, and let's get started. Now, at the tail end of last video, we just barely started talking about converting percents to decimals and vice versa. So if you have forgotten, or it's been a while, or maybe this is your first video, a reminder: when you're going from a percent to a decimal, you are going to move your decimal point 2 spaces to the left. Meanwhile, the reverse, when you're going from a decimal to a percent, you're going to take the decimal they give you and then move it 2 places to the right. And doing that will help affect and always give you the right answer. So going to the decimal, left, going to the percent, to the right. So if you need to write this in your notes as a little cheat sheet for yourself, by all means, go ahead and do so. No one is stopping you. Now, for this first one, we're talking about mixed numbers. And again, earlier chapters in pre-algebra has given you some exposure to mixed numbers. The big thing here, more than anything else, is to use your handy-dandy calculator and put it into a decimal percent. I think that makes sense. So in other words, what I'm going to do on the calculator, or in my case, my brain, which is a calculator, is I need to figure out what is 5/8 as a decimal. Now I'm going to show off for a little bit here, and I'm going to tell you that's going to be 0.625, but that's okay if you don't believe me. We're going to double check, and we're going to go 5 divided by 8, and it's 0.625. Mwahaha. So when I look at this percentage as a decimal, that is 13.625%. That's what it is. So the decimal is already kind of in there, but they're throwing it in there to deliberately throw you off. This is one of the things software does to trick you. But since it's a percent and we're going to a decimal, like we said, we take our decimal point and we move it 2 spaces to the left. So our final answer is 0.13625. And that's all they're looking for you to do. You'll notice they're not even asking you to round your decimal anywhere. They really want to see that you know how to take the entire decimal in. Next one, we need to convert. Oh, we have another 3/8. I didn't look at that. See that when I was doing the screen grab. So what is 3/8 as a percent? Do I know that off the top of my head? I believe it's 0.375. Let's double check our calculator. We're going to do 3 divided by 8, and it is in fact 0.375. So when I take that percent, it is 8.375%. And I take the decimal, because again, I'm changing it to a percent, and I'm going to move it over 2 places to leave you, we have a blank here, so we need that placeholder, 0.08375. The decimal is starting to get a little bit long, but it's not yet insurmountable. Nothing painful has happened. Last one we have, 16.5%, 1/2. I hope by this point everyone low-key kind of knows that that's 0.5. So we have 16.5%, and we move it 2 spaces to the left to get 0.165%. Ta-da! Now, can I do this next one and still have my little cheat sheet here? I'm going to box this a little bit because I know we're going to be using this again later, and I want to make sure that I can find it really fast. Okay. So now we want to rewrite the decimal in the sentence as a percentage. So we're immediately jumping right back to this little handy box to know what we're doing. So we have that 0.437, and because we're going from decimal to percent, now we're moving to the right. 1, 2, and our answer is going to be 43.7%. Next, we're told that 8% of cars is used and we want to convert it to a decimal. So that's 8% and we move it over 2 spaces to the left to get 0.08. So again, to a percent is the right, to a decimal is the left. And now we're going to do it again. Decimal to a percent. So we're going to a percent, we're moving to the right. So if we look over here, we have 0.54, move it over 2 spaces, and 54%. Then we have 3.1%. That's exactly like we were doing up in here. So it's 3.1%, and we move the decimal over 2 places to the left to get 0.031. So again, this box, I cannot emphasize enough, you want it written in your notes. It's very useful because it pops up in a lot of the following topics as we go through. So next, converting a percentage to a fraction. So now we're going percentage to a fraction. Let's see here. So what we're going to do, since again, and this was in the last video's notes, is a percent, I'm just going to write the percent symbol, is always out of 100. There's your key number, because that right there is going to be your denominator, just barely had rhyme, denominator of your fraction. So I already know, 75 over 100, yay, 80 over 100, yay, 84 over 100, yay. Except now they actually act like proper math teachers, and they tell you this needs to be in simplest form, boo, but not actually. The good news here is that, again, in my classroom, you have the scientific calculators. There's a button that you hit and you can simplify all of your fractions because there is a fraction button on a scientific calculator. Here, Ms. Dubois does not have that. She only has her dinky little calculator over here, which does not do fractions, silly little computer. So instead, I have to do this the hard way. Now, I happen to know 75 and 100 are both divisible by 25. So if I'm going to do this the long way, that's what I start with. 3/4 is what 75 means, and how many quarters are in a dollar? 4, so therefore this fraction is 3/4. 80 and 100. I do know a handy trick I learned in middle school was that zeros cancel each other out, so that leaves me now with 8 over 10. That's a lot better for my brain to sort of visually try to break down. I know they're both even numbers, so I'm going to divide by 2. I'm going to divide by 2, and that gets me 4 over 5, which is my answer here. So you can see for two of these three fractions, breaking it down hasn't been too bad. These are skills that you've probably used multiple times now, or, I mean, again, failing all that, I know that y'all are going to be using my scientific calculators. This one, when I first got the screen grab of it, actually gave me pause because I don't immediately know what both of these numbers are divisible by. I do know they're at least both divisible by 4, so I'm going to take it that far and see what happens beyond that, because my brain wants to tell me that these are both divisible by actually 16. We'll see. 84 divided by 4 is 21, and then 100 divided by 4, how many quarters are in a dollar? 25. And does that break down? Actually, no, it doesn't. Hey, we got lucky. And then we can now have our final fraction. 21 over 25 does not simplify. Same thing again, only now instead of a random percent, it's a decimal percentage. The horror! Now you're putting decimals and fractions in the same thing? How could you, software? How could you? You know, except there's a trick to it that makes it low-key kind of easy, and I'm not even talking about the button on the calculator. So if I have 47.5 out of 100, you can already see the fraction is just suffering in pain quietly because it can't understand why is there a decimal all up in its business. The thing that you do to make the decimal feel better, the fraction, to feel better, is you move the decimal over to the right, then move the decimal over to the right. So you're left with 475 divided by 1,000. Now, let's see here. Again, I don't have the calculator, so I have to do this in my head. I know that's divisible by 25, and that's divisible by 25. So that's going to be 40. I know that. Let's see if I can do this in my head. 16 plus 3 is 19 over 40. Those of you with the fancy scientific calculator, let me know in the comments whether I did that right in my head. Let's see here, 6.75 out of 100. Again, the fraction is looking at that decimal and saying, why are you up in my business? So we're going to take the decimal, move it over 1, 2 places, and I have to do the same thing underneath. 1, 2 places, 0, 0. So that leaves me with 675 over, what number is that? That's 10 thousandths. Wow, that's 675 10 thousandths. That is insane for a fraction. All right. Again, we have the 75 there, so I know both of these numbers are divisible by 25, divisible by 25. So that's going to be 400. And now let's see here, 25. So that's 24 plus 3, 27 over 400. Can that simplify? Is 400 divisible by 3 or 9? No, it's not. All right. So that's going to be our simplest form there. Computer. What'd you do? Can you work now? Oh, no. Ha ha ha, fixed. All right. Now that my train of thought has been completely derailed, where was I? So we got the 675, it's over 10,000, then we divided by 27, we got divided by 25, we got 27, 400, and were any of those divisible? No, they weren't, so we had just finished. Okay, apologize for the delay. Next one, final one, let's see here, we have 82.5% over 100. Yet again, I'm just going to add the 0 right now and move the decimal over to get 825 over 1,000. And I got lucky, I guess. Every single one of these can be divided by 25. I didn't grab as many screenfuls as I usually do, so I don't know if this is going to be consistent throughout the entire thing. And, I mean, I know you guys are going to be using the scientific calculators in my room, but regardless, let's see here. That becomes 40. What's 825 divided by 25? 33 out of 34. And for those of you who do have the scientific calculator, let me know in the comments whether or not these were right or not. I am doing this in my head. Now we get to scroll down to the next topic. What have we got? All right, fraction to a percentage, denominator of 4, 5, or 10. I like these topics because they kind of give you a not subtle hint to exactly what you're going to be doing. Because you're writing this as a percentage, what you're doing is you're going to take your fraction, take it to a decimal, which I did not give myself space to write, and then you're going to go from decimal to percent. And this is just straight up division. When you do 2 divided by 5, you're going to get 0.4. And since you're going from decimal to percent, you move it over 1, 2 spaces to the right in order to get 40%. On a calculator, if you do 3 divided by 4, you're going to get 0.75. And you move the decimal over 1, 2 spaces to get 75%. Help if I block these. Then we do 4 divided by 10. That's going to get me 0.4. Oh, it's the same one as the other one because I move it over 1, 2 spaces, and then I'm going to get 40%. This one is going to be 8 divided by 10. That gets me 0.8. Move it over 1, 2 spaces in order to get 80%. So this one isn't too bad. So now we have the same thing. We have the 4, 5, and 10 for this one. This one is going to be 20, 25, or 50. 26 divided by 50 is going to be 0.52. Move it over 1, 2 spaces, and it is 52%. 22 divided by 25 is going to get me 0.88. Move it over 1, 2 spaces, and I get 88 Miss Dubois percent. I promise I can write. That looks totally valid. Sure it does. Next, we're going to do, oh, I like this one. That's going to be an improper thing. Okay, This is cool. This is cool. Oh, but I gotta see if I can do that in my head. I don't know if I can. Let's see here. So we're gonna do 28 divided by 20. What's that's going to be? That is going to be 1.4, I think. So that's really cool because if you notice, for every other decimal we've had, it's always been 0 point something, 0 point something. Even up here, it's been 0 point something, 0 point something, 0 point something. Here we have 1.4. And this is really cool because if I take 1.4 and I move the decimal to the right, 1, 2 places, I suddenly have 140%. And visually that makes sense because this is an improper fraction. Improper fraction, if you recall, meaning you have a mixed number, meaning there's a whole number somewhere hidden in this fraction. And you can tell that because a whole number would translate to 100%, which is really cool. We're going to see something over here as well. 30 divided by 20 is going to get me 1.5. So I take that and I move the decimal over 1, 2 spaces, and it gets me 150%. So that, and you're starting to notice we've done a couple of topics now where we're doing conversion, and the conversion generally is pretty straightforward. You're kind of doing the same thing every time. Now, finally, using a calculator to convert. So Ms. Dubois can no longer do this math in her head. The first one we have over here is 13 divided by 64. Place your bets on how many percents or decimal places are going to be here. I say that because it says immediately round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Enter. Okay, that's not too bad. So it's 2031. 0.2031, and because we're converting it to a percent, we move to the right 1, 2 spaces, so it'll be 20.31%. This will be 3 divided by 3 divided by 53. That will not divide evenly. Whoa, look at that ugly mess. So 0.566. Oh, silly Miss Dubois. Did I read directions? No, I didn't. This is nearest tenth of a percent. So that's not part of the answer. That's a decision maker. So it's going to be 20.3%. Sorry about that. Next up, move it over 1, 2 spaces. So that's 5.66%, but we're rounding to the nearest tenth. There's my tenths place. There's my decision maker. So that makes me round up, and it will be 5.7%. I did not give myself enough space. This one, let's see here. That's going to be 3 divided by 49, right? Yeah, 49. Another ugly decimal, 0.0612. So 0.0612. Okay, move the decimal over 1, 2 places. So that's 6.12%. But we want the nearest tenth of a percent. There's my tenth. There's my decision maker. 2 makes me round down. Round down basically means you stay the same. So 6.1%. So far, so good. Now, our last topic for this video is going to be shorter than some of the others. Rewrite the fraction in the sentence below as a percent. So now we're doing all of the same things again. We're going to do 18 divided by 25, and then we're going to move the decimal. Let's see if I can do this in my head. Wish me luck. 4072. All right, that's my guess. Let's see if we're right. So we're going to do 18 divided by 25, 72. Yep. And now that's our decimal converted to a percent. 1, 2 to the right equals 72%. Then we do it again. 12 divided by 25. That's going to get me 0.48. I don't need my calculator for that. I move the decimal over 1, 2 spaces, and then that's going to get me 48%, and that will be our final answer. So that's everything to do with converting. There's only one more family left, the completionist stuff. This is where we're kind of using everything we've been learning in all of the prior families, the basics, the ratios, the percents, and all of the conversion. We're going to use all of that in one grand burn of topics here. So, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. I will see you in the next one. Thank you kindly for watching. End transmission.